Alongside tackling race relations between the police and the ethnic communities, the force must address any racism internally. John Nielsen again, followed by former officer Swarnjeet Burmi and Chief Inspector Raj Kohli.
Not only Asians, but any of the ethnic minority officers will tell you they have been victimised or racially abused at some point. The police officers are no different from any other member of the public. We treat every single incident seriously, but just as important, we provide as much support as we can to that officer as it goes through the court process. But generally men are mature and they deal with it as an occupational hazard, whilst accepting that they shouldn't have to put up with that.
I must say that I didn't come across any racial discrimination. I didn't think of it as racial. It might have been, but then I thought it was more a sex discrimination than racial, because the guys, if they had a female as a neighbour to walk the beat, especially at night, they weren't too happy because they would have to look after you as number one and then themselves. Whereas if it was two male colleagues, they were just there. They didn't have to look after each other as much.
The argument of racism is obviously quite a challenging one. There is racism within the police service because there's racism within society. I've been myself the subject of what I believe is, at the very least, discrimination and at the very worst, racism in terms of promotion and promotional aspects. And I recognise that, and I know that that's there, and that's been my personal challenge. But I've been 41 years in Britain, and you can't go around 41 years without actually having some mechanisms for coping with that. Some of the challenges, I suppose, with some communities are that they feel we over-police them. And you know, certainly with the African Caribbean communities of some of Parkland that we police, believe that we're only arresting them because they're black. And it's sometimes difficult to argue against that perception because that is their perception. So I think the racism argument is more acute about who we police and how we police them, and you know how we get them through the criminal justice system, because there is discrimination in the criminal justice system. I've always had a pet theory that we're a middle-class organisation that over-polices the working and underclass. Now, you look at the working and underclass of Britain, and it's disproportionately overrepresented by Pakistani, Indian, Bengali, and African Caribbean. So, is it any wonder, therefore, if we over-police within that sort of crime base, that we're going to get overrepresentation from those groups? Of course not. So, the socio-economic challenge for the government and for society generally to sort that out. But in the meantime, we will still over-police those communities.
Despite attracting more Asian and BME officers, ethnic representation at higher ranks is still to catch up. Surely this must be a priority for Scottish police forces. John Nielsen of Strathclyde Police.
I think it's essential. I think if we're going to represent or truly represent the communities and encourage people to come in and say, look, there is a career for you here, then that's exactly what we have to do. We have to fast-track people into that hierarchy, but do it fairly and equitably. Or the people from the minority ethnic background are going to say, well, what's the point? And that will actually prevent them from joining, and that's coming from our own officers are telling me that.
PCR in Chadha agrees, but has reservations about positive discrimination.
I would like to see more BME officers hired up and serving as role models, because I see that if we have BME staff at a higher level and as role models, then it will encourage more people to join the force, and that's just going to be a matter of time. There's no allowances made for being minority ethnic within the police force. Everybody's dealt with on their own merits. I certainly haven't been singled out and saying, oh, you're BME staff, so you must get promoted. It doesn't work that way. If I was to get promoted, I would get promoted on my own merits, the same as everybody else, which I think is really good, because it doesn't then make me feel that I'm being singled out. It makes me feel that I am part of the police force.
So you think it's a timescale issue?
I think it will be a timescale issue, and I think we'll see more and more BME officers being promoted and getting higher positions within police staff. I know at Fife Constabulary we've got a couple of BME staff that are already in senior management roles.
2003 saw the formation of Semper Scotland, the Scottish-wide organisation which acts on behalf of minority staff in the Scottish Police Service. Executive Director Sandra Dayland-Clark deals with a wide range of complaints from Semper members.
Mainly it's about the treatment that they're receiving within force. It's a treatment as it relates to complaints, promotion, lateral development, and feelings of general isolation. Normally we try to resolve complaints informally so as to cause the least amount of hassle to our member and the police force in question. Failing that, we go through the normal grievance procedures.
I think it's good to have that support network behind me, that if I have any problems, however There's a good support network within Fife Constabulary as it is. So that's lessened that I need them as support, but it's nice to know that they're there for BME staff.
Aaron Chada there, one of Scotland's BME officers appreciating the presence of Semper Scotland. However, Dinesh Joshi believes the organisation must not be left to work in isolation.
Semper is, I think, a very strong organisation. What it lacks is the support from the police service itself. They must become employers of choice. And to become employers of choice, they need to provide services and also an environment in which these individuals coming to work for them feel comfortable. And to do that, they must support an organisation like Semper Scotland.
So how have things changed over the last 4 decades? Well, it would appear there is a better environment for BME officers these days, and certainly at top level, big efforts are being made. But the execution at ground level is inconsistent. Accusations of occasional excessive policing and racism tarnish these police-community relations. Certainly, a more visible BME presence will help, and recruiting initiatives are ongoing. Here's Tom Harrigan and a potential new member of the Asian Polis.
I think they had one of the most successful recruiting drives here just last year, the end of last year in November, down at the East Pottshields Multicultural Centre, where over 250 people came along to the actual event itself. And time will tell out of how many of those 250 people actually are successful to become police officers.
I certainly thought about, with the jobs fair thing, I certainly thought about British Transport Police kind of thing. Yeah, I actually considered it for myself.
I mean, the foundations are there, but it constantly changes, and it constantly changes with the aspirations not only of the third and fourth generation young people, but immigrants who are coming in now to Glasgow, and that's a whole new ball game again.
Every person that comes into the organisation from a different background brings a richness that we can look at.
We got very good officers, but those frontline officers, these constables and these people, they need training. But still, the biasness against the minority ethnic community still sometimes does come out, right? I say to them, look, deal with the minority ethnic community. They are not above the law. All the minority ethnic community, they are law-abiding citizens. If anybody break the law, go charge them according to the law of the land. Don't use your excessive power. That's what I'm saying.
I think the bottom line is, I think it's all to do with the resources. I don't think they've got enough resources to do what they want to do. And I think they're under pressure.
When I retired from the police service, I was very sad, but happy in the sense that I was leaving a force which, when I joined, had 1 black police officer, which today has 37 police officers, with a unit that deals with diversity issues and with individuals that say, this is a good force, I would like to work for it.
The Asian Polis was presented by me, Ravi Sagoo, and was a Demas production for BBC Radio Scotland.